Hi everyone, this is an interview with my old friend and colleague Frank Gladstone, who I first met in Los Angeles in 1996 working on the Quest for Camelot. That feels like a long time ago now. And Frank, as well as his many accomplishments, which involve being the head of a CIFA Hollywood, he has just finished directing an independent animated feature film called The Hero of Color City. And Frank has very kindly agreed to give Flip an exclusive Skype interview all about this new film, which is coming out this November. So, Frank, tell us about Hero of Color City.
Well, it's a feature film for preschoolers up to the early elementary grades, so around 4 to 7 or 8 years old.
Cool.
And it's about crayons. Everybody loves crayons.
They do.
I love crayons.
Yeah.
And crayons come to life when nobody's looking. When the boy who owns these particular crayons goes to sleep, and they don't gamble around in the real world. They go to their own world, Color City. And what happens in our movie is a drawing that the boy had done. His name is Ben. That was not colored, just had an outline. Follows them to Color City, finds out how to get there, and follows them because he wants to be in color, but he can't tell them that because Ben forgot to draw him a mouth. So he has a sidekick, a kind of crazy little scribble drawing, and they follow the crayons, especially one particular crayon, Yellow, who's not very confident and feels like she's not part of the gang, although she has other crayons who love her. And they follow her into Color City, and then the crayons have to go on an adventure to stop the villain, so to speak, from taking their color away.
Excellent. It sounds like fun.
It is fun, and they have to go on a river ride, and they have to climb a mountain, and they meet other drawings that are also not in color, who are hiding in another place in this other world. And there's a kind of a scary, a little bit scary, not too scary, dinosaur that was a trash can in the real world, and in this world he's like their nemesis.
Excellent.
And they go through an adventure. It's lots of fun, and it's not too scary. A little scary, a little teeny scary, and there's some music in it, and it's really very, very colorful. It's about crayons. What else?
Excellent. Yeah. No, I remember hearing producer Max Howard pitch it in, I think it was at Lyon at Cartoon Forum years ago.
Right.
Well, not that many years ago, a few years ago, but it sounded really fun.
It had been in production at one point through Exodus Film Group, which is the same group that Max Howard and his production partner, John Araklis, had done. They'd done Igor several years ago, if you remember.
Yes, indeed.
And they were going to do Color City at that time. They had to postpone it. And at that time, I had worked on it a little bit as a script doctor. I have a group of writers I work with, and we had done a little bit of script work on it. And then they postponed the production. And, 2 or 3 years after that, they called back and said they were ready to do it, and would I direct it? And I said yes to both. I'm glad they were ready to do it, and yes, I would direct it.
Excellent. So this is your first directing gig on a feature film. Is that right?
On a feature film. I directed a lot of things in my career, lots and lots and lots of commercials, some shorts, a small series years ago, but I never directed a feature film.
Because you had your own animation studio before you came to Warner Brothers back in the 90s, didn't you?
Yeah, I started actually, I don't want to tell tales, but I started in 1973.
73? I was 6.
Yeah, young whippersnapper you. I started with my own studio in Florida. And at that point, there were very few studios. There was nothing in Florida. And I was doing what everybody else who didn't work for either the TV, like Deke or Filmation or Hanna-Barbera, I did commercials.
Yeah.
So mostly commercials, occasionally a short film or an industrial or something, or an educational film. And then after that, I went to work for Disney. And then after that, Warner Brothers is where I met you.
Yeah, indeed. So obviously, directing a feature film at DreamWorks or Disney or one of those very well-funded organizations is very different from doing an independent feature. What in particular were the challenges of directing a lower-budget independent project?
Well, for me, they weren't the particular challenges, because I come from, my background for the first half of my career was indies. It was commercials. And some of them were very low budget, and shorts and things we put up our own money for, whatever. And so but there are challenges because I did experience that at Disney and Warner's and DreamWorks, larger budget pictures.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue is you have less resources, meaning money.
Right.
So you don't have the wherewithal to stop the show and revisit story and
right.
redesign things and come up with something new and all those kind of things, or go back and redo sequences over and over again.
No.
And to me, actually, although you can't pull all the bells and whistles, at the same time, because you can't do that, it makes you make decisions that have to stick.
Right.
And it makes you be creative in using the resources you do have. And I think that's a strength.
Yes.
I actually really like that kind of. We have finite resources. We must work within those resources. That is really great. That kind of makes things go maybe a little faster. Yeah, you might not have every technical advantage that a bigger picture has.
Yep.
You have a much smaller crew. But at the same time, I used to have this rule: less money means more freedom.
Yes.
Generally speaking,
it's true.
That's kind of true.
Absolutely. But you did pre-production in Los Angeles, yes?
Yeah.
And then
it's a pretty common model now. It started with television years ago. Pre-production in LA, an animation production offshore, at whatever studio you work with. And in this case, Toons was the studio. It's in India, and they were a production partner as well.
Right.
So animation production offshore, and then back for post-production, which is scoring, final mix, sound mix, and sound design, and that kind of thing. Color correction.
And how was it working with India? I mean, that's obviously a big time difference, apart from anything else.
The time difference is difficult.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. When my day was ending, their day was starting.
Yes.
12 and a half hour difference from.
Well, we had that on Quest for Camelot. I mean, that was tough. I remember.
Yeah,
between London and LA, the two studios.
Yeah. So that was hard. The rest of it, though, was I never worked with a studio that far away before. When I was at Warner Brothers, we worked with England. When I was at Disney, we worked with France. That kind of thing. But I never worked that far before, or on such a indie project. But Toons is a long history, almost all television. They have done some long form, but they were kind of like long form TV kind of features. And I found that once we figured out what the working relationship was going to be and how we were going to do this together, it was surprisingly, although I can't say it was easy, it was without crisis.
Great.
The crisis said, and of course you always, there was a mistake here that runs through the film, the design bad, but those things seem to kind of work out okay. What
about? Did you animation direct as well as direct?
Yeah, they have an animation director there.
Okay.
And generally, when I would launch a sequence or a bunch of sequences, which I would do long distance, they would get the animation pretty well first time out.
Yeah.
Maybe 25 to 35% of the things I had to do corrections on.
Okay.
Usually, and the corrections would be I'd pull frames from the film, draw over them,
right.
Put arrows, put notes. We had long conversations on the Skype.
Yeah.
We had weekly Skype updates. Long conversations about that. They take notes, send the notes to me for corrections.
Yeah.
Back and forth. But once those were done, most of the time with one set of notes, it would be fixed.
Excellent.
Sometimes it took two sets of notes, but generally at that point it would be fixed.
Right.
And we would be fine.
So it sounds like they were a studio who were pretty much ready for their first feature by the time you found them.
Yeah, I think they were. And again, this is a feature that's very broad. The acting is very broad. It is a kind of fun, in your face kind of thing. And I think they really did a good job. I have no complaints. When there was problems, there was very little pushback at all, if any. It was basically, okay, we'll fix it.
How about culturally? Because I know sometimes when you direct animators, you want to say, make it like Disney timing or Tex Avery timing, or that bit in, and you reference some Warner Brothers cartoon from, I mean, was that a problem dealing with India, or was that?
Well, sometimes the accents were a problem.
Right, right.
Because I'm sure my accent was a little bit difficult for them, and sometimes their accent was a little bit difficult for me. And then over
Yeah.
Skype, sometimes that blurries around too.
Yeah, sure.
But in writing time, we didn't have a problem at all.
Yeah.
Occasionally there was a misunderstanding. As far as, I want to do a Disney timing here or Warner Brothers, I didn't do that. What I would do is use language. So I'd say, I want a soft hold here.
Right.
Which meant, or something. We kind of developed a language as we moved on. And, or I say, add 10 frames. I'm pretty good about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I want you to add 10 frames, take 10 frames out.
Got it.
That kind of stuff. And then once we had all the sequences done, and I worked with my editor, who was here in L.A., and actually is my son Joshua, who actually got this job before I did. So
excellent.
So Josh would say, I need 20 frames here for cutting frames, or I need, what about this, or that's that action's a little bit fast for the shot.
Yeah.
He would go back and say, can you slow this down, and they would do it. So it was pretty good. The communication, especially when I would draw over frames or we would do writing communication, and then backed up with the Skype, worked pretty well. And they were ready. This isn't a green studio.
Yeah.
And they seem to do really well with the animation. Well,
So
you'll see it. You'll see.
I will. I'll be first in line. So filmmakers always feel, I think, whenever you're making a project, you always feel at the end, by the time you get there, you kind of figured out all the things you wished you'd done in the beginning. Was there anything you would have done differently if you could have done it over, or did you get it all?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I would have. I had a very great storyboard guy, really great guy named Aaron Huminston and he's in Orlando, and he storyboarded the whole picture with me.
Wow.
I give him notes, and he'd storyboard it and go back and forth a couple of times, and that was it.
Wow,
I would like to have not pressured him so much, and have a couple or three storyboard guys. So I would love that. Although he was perfectly capable and did do the whole movie. I would like that. I think that would be easier on everybody. I would have liked to have a little more day-to-day in India, either being there myself or having a deputy there on a day-to-day basis. So and sometimes the time difference, the fact that we couldn't speak every day, things could get confused that we then would find out maybe a week later.
Yeah.
And if we had somebody there day-to-day, that would have been better. Other than that, as far as working with the animators there, I would have loved to have a more personal relationship with them.
Yeah.
It would have been great if I could have been there and talked to them individually. A couple of frustrating things would happen. I'd see a mistake, and it would take me maybe an hour or 2 hours to correct it in notes and drawings. Whereas if I were there with the animator, it would have taken 30 seconds.
Sure.
I would see that. I'd point it at the screen and say, or her screen, and say, see that, move that hand this way. Then, and trying to get that, especially if it was something that knocked on for a few shots.
Yeah.
It would be very hard to correct in notes and take a long time. And I knew that it would be, in a conversation in person, it would have been a cinch.
It would be quicker. And when you were reviewing shots, did you know which animator was submitting a shot, or was it just anonymous submissions? And how?
It wasn't anonymous. I would get to see the little slate at the bottom.
Right.
But I never really got to know those guys. Right. I think they got to know me better than I got to know them, and that's something I missed.
Yeah.
And it's something I would change. I'd either be going to India more often, maybe to launch every shot and have some personal relationships with the animation crew, or wherever we do the next one. If another one comes up, whether it's this movie or another movie, I would like to be able to be at the studio during the production more than I was.
And where it
worked out okay.
Where in India are they?
Southern India. It's called Trivandrum. It actually has a much longer name, which I can't pronounce. And it is there, for India, it is their tropical, much as the United States, we have Southern California and Southern Florida.
Yeah.
They're tropical part of the country. It's very warm. It's not quite as crowded as the cities up north.
Right.
But it's still crowded. It's India.
Yes, indeed. Yes. So you didn't send an animation supervisor there. They had their in-house person, and you worked. You would review stuff by Skype and so forth.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. And I had a great time. I had two supervisors, Prasant and Vijay, and that was a great time. We communicated all the time. And basically, I had to rely on them to make sure that production staff was getting the message across. They seemed to do it. They
Yeah.
seemed to really do it.
Yeah.
There was an animation supervisor as well who would come in when I was giving character animation notes.
Excellent. And when is the premiere? Do I get tickets?
The premiere, I've just found out, is the 27th of September. If you're in LA, I can get you.
I'm kidding. I probably won't be able to make it.
And then the actual release is October 3rd.
Excellent. Excellent. We'll be looking forward to it.
It's going out theaters and day and date on a video and DVD, so home video as well as downloads.
So let's say I'm sure a lot of people watching this will have their own idea for a feature film or the germ of an idea. What's the best advice you can offer to them to get from there to where you are now?
Oh boy, that's such a hard one, Alex.
What are the 2 or 3 most important things?
First of all, it's important to realize that many established studios can't just look at your work. You
Right.
can't just send it in and say, I've got this great idea for Cookie Lookie and the Cookie Lockies, and here it is, and I want you to read my script. That's very difficult to do. The studios, even the smaller studios, are loath to do that because of copyright issues and ownership issues, and the idea that somebody could claim, plagiarism or
Right.
something like that. So generally speaking, especially if it's a feature and you're looking for a producing house, you're probably going to have an agent or a representative, a legal representative of some sort, who will submit the idea for you and keeps a record of where it goes. There are other ways around it. You can approach somebody and then say you'll sign a document so you won't lay claim to things. That's kind of difficult. There are these legal ramifications. Number one. Number two, if your movie is a movie designed from 8 to 80,
Right.
it's a big thing. Chances are you're going to want to try and find a larger studio that has a long distribution arm already. If it's a niche picture, meaning it's for preschoolers or it's just for people who love horses, or it's an anti-war picture, or it's an adult-themed picture, then you can probably do better, have more luck with independent or smaller houses. Niche pictures are by their definition, meaning they're going to just appeal to one part of the strata of society, are by their definition probably independent, lower budget, less distribution.
Yes.
And it's best to try and find production partners that way. It's a little bit different in doing it in Europe on the continent than it is in the U.S.
Yeah.
You have Cartoon Movie and places like that in Europe where production houses or production groups, country by country, chip in.
The European co-productions.
European co-productions.
Yeah.
Channel 4.
Yeah.
Belgium, whatever.
It's tough though. It's not easy.
Yes, you may have a lot of production partners, each one claiming distribution in its own country.
Yeah.
Whereas I produced or executive produced a picture in Canada a few years ago, and a good deal of the money actually came from the government.
Yes. Yes.
So that's the other issue. In the U.S., generally, especially for indies, if you already have a distributor, which is the biggest issue, meaning somebody that's going to handle the release, and put the money up to release it, do the prints and advertising, or now the digital and advertising. That's a key. Finding that distributor is really a key to this.
Yes.
Sometimes, and you can either go backwards, where you find the distributor and then the producers that way, or more reasonably, a producer is interested in your project, then finds a distributor.
Yes.
That's the usual case. So those kind of things. Also, some of the bigger places are looking for full-blown screenplays to start.
Yeah.
Other ones are fine if it's a treatment. So and then some people want to see some artwork, which you should realize is not going to end up looking like the movie. It's going to be changed a million ways.
Yes.
But you may want to have some sizzle.
Indeed.
Some stuff to show, to give people who you're pitching to the idea of what you're going about. In TV, it's a little different. You need a Bible.
Yes.
You need a here's 13 plots for 13 shows. Here's what our main characters look like, and some flashy artwork, as well as long descriptions and a whole thing. And in features, I really haven't seen a Bible. I've seen pitch books. I've seen 30-page treatments.
Yeah.
And 5 wonderful pieces of art.
Yeah.
It's a little different.
Yes.
Did any of that make sense? Because that's what
makes sense to me. I know. I think it's tough. I mean, especially what you say about distribution. Even the movies, the things that get made at Cartoon Movie, very few of those get U.S. distribution.
Very few.
And you have U.S. distribution for Color City, I believe.
Yes, we do, and I think that was part of the. I don't really know. I'm not the business guy.
Sure.
But that was part of why Exodus could then come back to me and say we're ready to start again. They had actually found distribution. Magnolia, which is a very nice indie distribution. This would be Magnolia's first animated film. They've done lots of documentaries and what we used to refer to as art house features,
right.
Small indie features that some of them have done really great. And they agreed to distribute. They liked the idea. They liked the pitch that the producers made to them, and they agreed to distribute. And at that point, we had North American distribution. I think that was the light turn from caution to green.
Yeah.
Now Magnolia's distributing in, I don't know all the territories, but North America. There's another distributor doing the continent, doing Europe.
Right.
It's a different group.
Yeah.
And that group I think is also doing Asia.
Yeah.
So
cool.
There you are.
Now you're president of A C for Hollywood. Does that mean you can nominate Color City for an Annie?
I can't.
You can't. No, of course not.
No, I cannot. I actually, I was just talking with one of the producers, with Max today.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're going to put in Annie nominees or submit for Annie nominations, and I will have to actually recuse myself from anything that has to do with that.
Quite right.
Now, generally, I don't do any. I organize the nominating process, but I don't vote because I was the president, I'm the executive director.
Got it.
And generally, unless I generally do not vote, I just run meetings.
Right.
And other people vote, so that'll be fine. If indeed I find that I'm in a position where I have to vote, and Color City is one of the conditions, I have to recuse myself.
Yes. Excellent.
Sorry.
That's all right. Well, Frank, thank you very much. It's been really kind of you to take time to talk to us about your film. I'm really excited to see it myself.
Well, I'm happy to do it and happy to give the interview. And you're my old pal, Alex. So if you do find yourself with Sarah and